We are almost done with the Saint Anne. Only one more battle against our old friend Khan, who claims to have caught 40 different Pokemon. That's funny, considering how you're only using 4 in this battle. So this guy is either a complete liar or a complete idiot, because there's really no reason why you wouldn't have a full team of 6 if you have that many Pokemon. Actually, no, I take that back. There is one reason, namely to be able to catch Pokemon when your box is full. Yeah, I'm going there again. So, I don't think that's the real reason why they made him only have 4 Pokemon here, because that would be really stupid on the developer's part to just draw attention to one of your game's biggest flaws like that. Okay, no, maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe he just wants to use the Pokemon that he catches immediately on his team and not want to send them to the computer at all. Not like there are any Pokemon to catch here. Okay, I get it. I'm overthinking a kid's game again and they made him have 4 Pokemon because they thought 6 would be too hard at this point. Okay, Fushikiso has reached level 32. That means it's about to evolve, meaning I now have the 10 Pokemon required to get the Flash HM. So I'm gonna start using other Pokemon again now. And speaking of HMs, we're about to get the Cut HM, or Iai Cut as it's called in the Japanese version. A martial arts reference that I guess was too Japanese for the localizers. And speaking of HMs and TMs, the term technical machine is a literal translation of the Japanese term waza machine. Waza literally meaning technique. But the problem is that techniques were translated as moves in the English version. So if you're calling techniques moves, why are you still calling TMs technical machines? I mean, it could be worse. It could be the German version, where moves were translated as attacks, as if they were all offensive somehow. You know, it's like Twitter. Everything is offensive. There was a thing recently Twitter got all anal about, because the official English Pokemon account tweeted Porygon did nothing wrong, and Twitter lost its fucking shit over it. Like, oh, I guess those 700 kids who got sent to the hospital mean nothing to you. You know, all this same exaggerated bullshit that nobody ever actually researches where that 700 number even came from. And then there was one person, I think it was like Zoe Quinn or one of those people, who called the tweet a Holocaust joke. And the Pokemon Twitter account actually ended up deleting that tweet, and everybody assumed that it was because of the backlash. I don't think so. I think they were pressured into deleting it by the Japanese side, because the Japanese side of Pokemon was always super anal about the Porygon situation. They always try to sweep it under the rug and pretend it never happened, which I think is way more disrespectful to the victims than making a stupid Twitter joke about it. Like, imagine if you got sent to the hospital because of a seizure induced by a TV show, and the creator of that TV show were just like, nope, that never happened. What seizures? What episode? You don't exist. That would kind of suck, wouldn't it? So as the ship sets sail, we get to hear a little sneak peek of the surfing theme, which we're going to hear a lot more of later in the game. I wonder if anybody thought that was a hint that you were supposed to use surf here in order to get to that truck. I mean, yeah, it's really a stretch, but that's what all these urban legends were like back then. Hell, the version of the Mew myth that I was told didn't even involve the truck at all. My version was you were literally had to surf around the SSN for 10 hours and then Mew appears. I think I tried it for about 2 minutes before giving up. So I'm about to show you something that is probably gonna blow some people's minds. I know it blew mine when I first heard about it. You can cut grass. This works in all mainline Pokemon games up to Generation 3. They took it out afterwards, maybe because they figured nobody knew about it anyway, so why bother programming it in? Or maybe the creators themselves just forgot about it, I don't know. Anyway, I'm now in the Digda Cave on my way to get the Flash HM, and as much as people rightfully complain about the hand-holding in modern Pokemon games, I think this area is an example for where I think they could have done a little bit of a better job at guiding you in the right direction. So when I was a kid, and yes, I realized this was the same me as a kid who tried surfing around the SSN for 10 hours, so take this with a grain of salt. When I was a kid, I completely missed this entire area. I didn't even know the Flash HM was a thing. So, I went my way through the fucking rock tunnel, all by inching my way through on a dark Game Boy Color screen. And then only when I was actually through, the same kid who told me to go surf around the SSN told me, hey, there's a thing they can make that go bright. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I could have used that information before. And yeah, I'm sure it was just because I was a dumb kid and there's probably tons of NPCs that hint towards it, but I was like 4, give me a break. So actually, you know what? Scratch what I said earlier. This area is fine. You don't need to handhold. Fuck what I said earlier. This is totally fine. I was just a dumb kid. So dig this cave. A very short and very linear dungeon, although depending on your luck, it may feel a lot longer than that because the encounter rate here can be absolutely ass. But it's not as bad as what we could have gotten, because there's an interview with Ishihara where he says that in earlier prototypes of Red and Green, the encounter rate was so bad that you would run into a Pokemon about every 2 steps. And not only that, but you would have to fight a trainer every time you walk past him, regardless of whether you already beat him or not. So both of these things combined, Ishihara said it would take like half a day to get through a single cave. If you want to source, this interview is in Shoko Nakagawa's book, Pokemon Taught Me the Meaning of Life. Also in that interview, he says how Pokemon is such an international phenomenon and he wants to expand it even more throughout more countries, and how it overcomes language barriers and stuff. And I know I'm repeating myself, but this shit doesn't work if you keep changing the names of everything, so 2 people from 2 different languages will have no idea what the fuck the other one is talking about. I can't believe I still have to say this shit. Oh, sure, you can go into the left side of the door, but not the right. Fucking talk to me, NPC! Well, I'm yelling at him, but that guy is pretty much me in real life, avoiding conversation whenever possible. Now this is where we finally get HM05 Flash, assuming of course we have 10 Pokemon caught, which I do, but I still selected no first because I want to show both dialogue options. In Let's Go, you no longer need 10 Pokemon in order to get this. Or rather, the secret technique Light Up, which is the equivalent to Flash in that game, because they got rid of HMs and replaced them with secret techniques instead. Which are kind of the same thing, except they only work outside of battles, so you no longer need to waste a move slot on them. Which in turn means you no longer need to waste a Pokemon slot on an HM slave. Huh. Pokemon Let's Go actually did something better. I'm impressed. And once again, the English version uses the word technique instead of move, except this time there's no waza in the Japanese term, instead it's jutsu. So it's actually not a translation inconsistency this time. I'm impressed. So just like the bicycle, every time I have to use an HM in the first generation, I have to do it manually through the menu. And if you see me fumbling about between the Pokemon and items menu all the time, it's because I keep having to cut trees and I also keep having to go on the bike. So I'm always like, wait, which is the correct menu this time? There's another thing that we can do in this area now that we have Iai Cut. We can go back to the museum. There's a new area that we couldn't access before that I'm gonna go to now. This is where we get access to the secret amber, known as the old amber in the English version. I assume that was changed for character limit reasons. But you know what's kind of stupid about this and all the other fossils? Is that in this very museum, there are full skeletons of all 3 of the extinct Pokemon species. But somehow, in order to revive them, we need those tiny little fossils. You'd think that would work a lot better with the full skeletons. Also, why the fuck would there be DNA of a big-ass dinosaur in a tiny little piece of amber? The only things you may find in there is stuff like bugs, which there actually is a mosquito on the Generation 1 artwork for the thing, which is another case of a real-life animal in Generation 1 Pokemon. There was also one instance that I missed pointing out last time. The chef in the kitchen of the St. Anne mentions that he's cooking beef fillet steak, but in the English version they changed it to salmon. I guess they changed it because they wanted it to be more sea-themed. Also, the chef is the only one in the kitchen who speaks French in the English version. Not everyone in the kitchen, like I said last time. The puzzle in this gym is very infamous for all the wrong reasons. A lot of people struggle with it. Because, well, I use the term puzzle very loosely. Because that word implies that there should be some sort of a logical thinking involved. But here, this is just dumb luck. Or at least you're supposed to think it's just dumb luck. In Generation 1, there actually is some method to the madness, but you're not supposed to know about that. It's just like a game internal thing that they did, probably for technical reasons. Only half of the trash cans can actually have the first switch in them, and they're laid out in like a crisscross pattern. And then the second switch, there's not really a system to it, nothing logical. It's just that depending on what can the first switch was in, there are certain cans that the second one can be in. So the way it's supposed to work, and the way it works in all the later generations, and I think even one of the NPCs in this gym tells you it works this way. In fact, I think it's the one I'm fighting right now. He says this after the battle, that the second one is always in one adjacent to where the first one was. But in Generation 1, that's not how it works. In Red, Green, and Blue, there's always a chance that the second switch is in the trash can all the way in the top left. In fact, yeah, here's the guy saying the second one is always in an adjacent one. In Yellow, they actually changed the system a bit. The first can still works the same as it does in Red, Green, and Blue, but the second can is different. I guess they changed it to get rid of that top left bug, but they didn't fix it at all. Some of the cans still have a chance of the second switch being in the top left, and some of the other ones just go completely all over the place with no rhyme or reason. So the leader of this gym is named Mattis, and he is an American. Now there's a few things to unpack here, but first and foremost, this implies that America, under the name America, exists in the Pokemon world. So I know that Pokemon regions are based on real-life regions, and there has been one in America, but normally we don't hear about the countries that these regions are in. So is the America that Mattis is from the same America that Issue is a part of? And are Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, and Sinnoh part of a larger Japan? It is implied that Issue is farther away from the previous regions, which is why the routes start back at, you know, Route 1. But I think the name-dropping of actual real-life countries is the same thing as all those mentions of real-life animals. They just hadn't really finalized the setting yet. And hell, even Kanto has the same name as its real-life counterpart. So probably at the time they were going for the Pokemon world being much more closely based on the real world compared to what we see in the later generations. And not only is he an American, but he's an American in a Japanese game. And Americans in Japanese media, well, there's a stereotype that you see a lot, and Mattis is one of the best examples of this. He is a war vet, which surprisingly wasn't censored in the English version. But yeah, Americans in Japanese media are often stereotyped to be like all about war and guns, and they always talk in a very stereotypical manner. We're gonna see that once we actually go and talk to him. But yeah, his Japanese name is Mattis, although I've also seen it romanized as Machisu, which, you know, kind of defeats the whole thing about him being American and stuff. But yeah, that name is actually derived from a genus of flower species known as Clematis. And there's another gym leader later on in the series, Generation 3, whose name is also derived from the same genus, namely Tessen, or Watson as he's called in the English version. And Tessen is literally just the Japanese name for clematis flowers. So you may be wondering, what is it with electric gym leaders being named after a flower species? You'd think that would be for, like, grass-type leaders, right? Well, the Japanese word for clematis, tessen, literally translates to steel wire. And if the American stereotypes in the Japanese version weren't enough, his German name is Major Bob. So his Japanese name Mattis, which was already English, was changed for the English version to Lieutenant Surge, which is also English, and then they changed it to yet another different English name for the German version, just to be even more stereotypical. Okay, time to take on this puzzle. So, to find the first trash can, I'm only gonna check every second trash can. I'm gonna skip every other one, because, well, those are the only ones that it can be in, like I explained earlier. And nope. Oh, of course. Out of all the trash cans that can have the first switch in them, it's in the last place that I check. So if the revelation that there's a system to this puzzle wasn't enough for you, if you've ever gotten frustrated at this puzzle, you are about to feel extremely stupid. Save the game. Gee, I wonder, where could that second switch be? Maybe it's in this one? Nope, there's nothing but trash here. Reset. Because I saved the game after finding the first switch, my save file still has that switch found, and I get a second chance at the second switch, or however many other chances that I need. Now, some may call this cheating, but it's a fucking luck game. Who gives a shit? Also, yes, I totally failed the first time on purpose just so that I can show that off. The second switch can never be in that trash can I tried the first time, not if you got the first switch where I got it. And yes, the saving trick works in all generations that this puzzle is in, unlike those strategies I explained earlier. So we just saw the introduction dialogue for Mattis, and yeah, he talks in a very stereotypical way that Americans often do in Japanese media. He speaks Japanese, but he just randomly throws in English words. And as somebody who actually speaks English fluently, it sounds like the cringiest shit ever. No American who speaks Japanese actually talks this way. Another example of this in the Pokemon franchise would be that kid at the beginning of the first movie.
Hey! Sokuno boy! You got badge Hachiko getsta? Masarata no Satoshi sono hito kana?
And speaking of the anime, in the anime episode that Mattis is in, he also drops this one.
Got them!
Because Americans in Japanese media have to swear, it's just a law. And of course 4Kids took it out, because people in 4Kids dubs can't swear, it's just a law. And this fight's a bit different in yellow, it's more close to the anime, where he only has a single Raichu, and also it's 4 levels higher. And oh god, here we go, more Mattis dialogue. Oh no! You no Tsuyosa wa truce! One of the rare instances where the English version is less cringy. Not because of anything they intentionally changed for the better, but just because you can't really have a bad American accent in a game that's in English anyway. But I think this is a good place to end this episode, so see you guys next time!